Hey, welcome to another episode of the Changing Lives podcast. It's great to have you with us today. Our interview today is with Rachael Rose. Rachael is a brand spanking new trainee paramedic with the New South Wales Ambulance Service. She started her journey into this career around about 5 years ago when she signed up for the Cert 4 in healthcare with the Australian Paramedical College. Decided then she would upgrade to a Diploma of Paramedical Science and knew she loved it. So she jumped into the Bachelor degree and went through all of the process really of applying for registration and then applying for the state service, and was unexpectedly called up much earlier than she ever expected to start the traineeship because of the extra boots needed on the ground for this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, and because she's fresh into her role as a trainee paramedic, but also that student experience is something that she's recently gone through, as she shares such relevant advice to anyone that's on the career pathway journey to become a paramedic. And she shares some incredible personal experiences and the way she's overcome that challenge of studying with family, balance, life, work. You're really going to get a lot out of what she shares.
Awesome. I reckon we should jump straight into the interview, Tim.
Let's do it.
Absolutely, and I think you just don't know what any day will bring. It might be a completely mundane, day of relatively routine jobs, or then, like yesterday, for example, I got to drive 80 k's from south of Wollongong to Sydney, lights and sirens up the highway, because my partner was trained in the use of a multi-purpose vehicle for bariatric patients, and she was the closest trained one in New South Wales to a job in Sydney, so we had to get up there as soon as possible. So I got to drive 140 k's up the highway. So
wow,
that was pretty fun. And then came back and helped a 70-year-old woman having a heart attack. She was having a STEMI. So that was our last job of the night. So
what a day. Oh my goodness.
Great. Well, Rachael Rose, thank you so much for coming on the Changing Lives podcast.
You're welcome. Nice to be here.
It's really great to have you. So interested in your journey going into this career, diploma and the Bachelor and all of the volunteer roles that you've played and the input you've given to students as well throughout your journey, and now being a trainee paramedic for the New South Wales Ambulance. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this was always definitely the end game for me, and although I'm not there yet, still the trainee paramedic. But
when are you there, right?
I'm here. So the year training program, and I'll be a fully qualified paramedic. But by no means will know everything. I think it's a lifelong learning endeavour, this role, which is part of what appeals to me as well. So
you've been 3 months into the role, is that right?
Yeah, that's right, just 3 months.
And
so
can you
very much a beginner still.
Sorry, what was that?
I still feel very much a beginner in the role, but I'm learning a lot. So
what's it been like, and what is the role entail?
Basically, as they told us in induction, we're not expected to be as good as a qualified paramedic. We're expected to be a valuable assistant to our P1 paramedic partner. So basically, we're doing all the roles that they do, but with support. And, so everything that we learned at college and at university, patient care and history taking and medication and making decisions and advocating for our patients and deciding what resources we need. So we're doing all of that, but then with a level of support that we can always defer to our partners if we it's like, I really don't know what to do here, or if we're going a little bit in the wrong direction, they'll sort of point us in the right direction if you've got a good partner, which I've been very lucky to have. So
fantastic. And I understand you were kind of I guess because of COVID-19, and you were kind of fast-tracked. You're in this position much, much earlier than you ever expected. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I had applied for Queensland, Victoria, New South Wales and London Ambulance. I was on the waiting list for Queensland for the assessment days, which were then cancelled because of COVID. I was also on the waiting list to go down to Victoria for an assessment day, and their assessment days were also cancelled. And then New South Wales, I had been sort of placed on the merit list last year, but I hadn't heard anything, so I didn't know what would happen. And then in April, got an email saying, was I still interested? So very much I'm still interested. Then came a phone call saying, well, if we offered you a role, could you be in Sydney in 2 weeks' time? Yes. And, they kept emphasising this is not a job offer. And then it came to 3 days before and I hadn't heard anything and thought, oh, for sure I've missed out. They'd give us more notice than this. But Wednesday afternoon I got a phone call, we need you to be in Sydney by Sunday. So that's how it happened. Then we went into quarantine for 4 weeks and did our induction over 4 weeks in quarantine. There was 180 of us in pods of 30. So 150 the people I haven't met.
Wow. So 180 on the spot were kind of pulled into this trainee program to kind of beef up this healthcare support system because of COVID.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't know where how it was going to go and where and when more paramedics would be needed.
Yeah.
So I think the plan was always to recruit for around about 400 paramedics this year.
Really?
But they just took in, almost half of the quota in one lot. So I was just really fortunate to be part of that.
And where did you move from? Where was home for you then? So you had to obviously relocate.
Yeah, I was living in Brisbane.
Yeah.
So it was a matter of moving 1,200 kilometres south, or more accurately, me leaving in 3 days and saying to my partner, can you please pack up our house and our lives and move us 1,200 k's south in a month?
Wow.
So, I was very lucky to have a supportive partner. A lot of people doing it on their own, it was a lot more difficult for them. Or if, their partners, boyfriends, girlfriends, wives, husbands had, jobs or they had families where they were, it was a lot more difficult. So, and we all had to find new accommodation in a time where we weren't allowed to actually go and physically see places as well. So we, most of us had to do that all online. Interesting times.
I find that fascinating, but in some ways when, kind of getting to kind of do a bit of background research on you, as you are highly recommended from our college here, Australian Paramedical College, that we're a part of. Hey, you've got to interview this woman. She's incredible, and the adventurous streak that seems in you. Someone, to almost do a paramedic, to follow through with a paramedic career, you almost have to have that bit of adventure streak in you, that ability to be adaptable, highly adaptable. Would you say that's kind of where there's a bit of synergy with the career now that you've launched into and your personality?
Absolutely. And I thought it was probably for about 10 years before I actually took the plunge and did it. I'd been considering doing it because I really got a kick out of helping people. In my previous role, I was an office worker. I was a business manager, but I'd always maintained my first aid certificates after working for Red Cross years ago, and just happened to be, first on scene in a couple of car accidents, or when I was travelling, had to help people who were caught up in a Maoist riots on the streets of Kathmandu, been hit in the head with a brick and treating head injuries, just approach people to help. And I liked doing it. It made me feel good. And I also just felt like I was so calm and in control during the situation, and thought that, hey, maybe I can do this. I wasn't really rattled by it when there was a lot of people sort of standing around with flapping hands, not knowing what to do. So I sort of thought, one day I'll do this if I want to change careers. And then sort of approaching 40, went, well, if I don't do it now, I'm going to miss out. So that's one of the reasons why I came to the college too, because I was still working full-time and I could do the Cert 4 and the diploma through the college externally while I was still working, just to make sure it is what I actually wanted to do before I, chucked in my well-paying job with travel perks to become a uni student. So, but, yeah, and I loved it. I loved the study. I loved particularly the 2 lots of 2 weeks practical we did at the college, which really consolidated it. For me, I enjoyed the study, but I found it all quite abstract until we came to do the practical and put it all together. Why do these algorithms have anything to do with this, and where do the skills fit in, and all the patient history and how does it all fit together? And then when you actually practice that, you understand it more.
I mean, it's like that with everything, isn't it? It's all kind of up here, head knowledge, and it's really hard to sort of put some context to it until you get that opportunity. And of course, the 2 weeks of clinical workshops give you that opportunity, as well as placement as well. Where did you end up doing your placement?
I went to, after the college, when I was at the college, I was lucky enough to get a position as a volunteer for St John. So I did a lot of my practical skills through them. And I also did some stints through other organisations such as HEST and other first aid companies on the Gold Coast. Then when I was at uni, I went to QUT and we do 3 lots of 6-week blocks of prac. So my first I did in Metro South in Brisbane at Carina Station, which was quite a busy station. The second block I did out west at Mergen, which is about 3.5 hours northwest of Brisbane. And Mergen Station looks after an Indigenous community, Cherbourg, out there, which was a really interesting opportunity to work with some Indigenous folks out there. And then my third lot of prac I did at Beenleigh Station, which was another very busy station.
Yeah.
So I had a mix of metro and rural, and I would really recommend that. Actually, it opened up my eyes to the possibility of working rural when before I'd done that placement, I didn't really think it was even on my radar. But completely different experience, different skill sets. You got a lot more time with patients, a lot longer travel time, a lot less backup. So you sort of have to think on your feet a little bit more and, be a bit more resourceful than you do in the city. Yeah. So, it was definitely a valuable experience.
Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? And that's really good advice for students to learn from that. It's like, hey, if you have the opportunity to choose where you're going to do your placements throughout, whether diploma or the bachelor, get a variety of different situations. As you said, rural, metro, to get a feel for it, because you don't know you only know what you know, right? You don't know how something's going to be in the feel and whether it's going to fit you until you actually give it a go. And placement's a great opportunity to suss that out.
Absolutely. There's advantages of being in the city. You've got a lot of resources, but also, a lot of the time the hospital's 20 minutes away. So you've only got that travel time to talk to your patient and do vitals and get your paperwork at least partially done. And and if there's anything really interesting, everybody's all over it. And the critical care paramedics or the intensive care paramedics rock up and, then they get to do all the interesting stuff.
Right.
So whereas rural, where I did my rural placement, there was one critical care paramedic in the area, and if he wasn't on shift, there was no backup. So you might get another crew, in 40 minutes, depending how far they were away. So you really did have to think about it more. There were a lot fewer jobs during the day. So a better work-life balance in some respect and a lot of time to study. And then in the city stations, once you left the station in the morning, you'd be lucky to get back all day. So
And kind of to bring it back to your situation right now, so you're 3 months into a 1-year trainee paramedic position, but I understand that there's possibility that you might have to transfer somewhere else in the country or in the state, right, within New South Wales.
Yeah.
And, it's not like you can pick and choose as well where you might necessarily be. You do have some choice, but can you explain through that? Because I think that's really helpful to know, the flexibility and the adaptability and varied opportunities there are.
Oh, definitely. For the graduate year, we were asked to put in our preferences for regions and, regions based on the local area health network sort of regions. I was really lucky because I put the Illawarra as my first preference and I got it. However, that's not necessary. They will take your preferences into consideration, but it depends on what they need operationally. So you do have a bit of a say, but then you can be offered anywhere in the state. And, if you turn it down, you more or less, as I understand it, almost go to the bottom of the list and, you'll say, okay, well, we offered you that, you weren't interested, we'll see what's left, once we've offered everybody else what they, what for them. So I think you do have to approach it with a flexible mind and be sort of willing to go anywhere. And, it is an adventure. You don't know where you'll end up. If you really want a job, it's about the job. It's not about the place. So I think to do this, you really want to do the job, and everywhere will have its advantages and disadvantages. And, if you're tied down with with a family or mortgage or partner who can't move, it does make it more difficult. But I understand the service, it would take, compassionate reasons into account.
Sure.
Really have reasons where you need to be in a particular area, you can put your case forward. And, it depends on the situation. They do, as I understand it, consider those things. But my advice would be, if you can be flexible, you've got a much better chance of getting a job and getting a job quicker.
Yeah, good advice.
Fantastic. Oh, I'd be eating this all up if I was, kind of getting to the end of my studies and looking at applying at a whether it be an state ambulance service or for other paramedic jobs. It's really helpful information.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that, actually, because I think, my ambition was always to work for a state service, but that's not where everybody necessarily wants to be. And also, there are limited positions, so there are a lot of other options that people can consider. So just prior to getting the job offer with New South Wales Ambulance, I had just accepted a position with a mining company in Queensland. So I was all set to go and do a 7 days on, 7 day off, 12-hour-a-day roster at the mines, because I thought that, I was just determined to take the first job offer that I got and go with that, and so it happened. But then, thankfully, before I actually went out there, I got the New South Wales Ambulance offer. So that was my preference. But, it's different experience and depends what you want to do it for. Apparently, the mining job would have been crazy money, but it's also not as varied a work. So, it depends on what you want to do.
It sounds like you're not in this for the biggest pay packet. I mean, you said this is your second career, and your first one was a well-paying one. You've just turned down a probably likely much more better paid job at the mines for the lifestyle and the type of role that you're after.
Oh, definitely. I think I've been in a position where, like you said, I was earning quite good money in a business role, but I just didn't have the passion for it anymore. It didn't mean anything to me anymore, and I wanted to do something with my life that I could, come home at the end of the day and feel satisfied and felt like I'd sort of made a difference, even if it's to one person's day. Sometimes you get mundane jobs and, it's even you can go the whole days and none of those people actually really needed an ambulance. They needed help. They needed something, but they probably could have just gone to their GP or gone to the hospital themselves. But having said that, you helped them still. You made their day better, easier. Maybe they didn't know what they needed. They just know they needed help. And then, there's the other extremes where you are actually helping people who are in the process of having a heart attack or having a mental health crisis or, a traumatic injury. And, it's those jobs that sort of really make it worthwhile as well, because you feel like you played some part in actually saving a life, which, you do get a buzz out of that.
How rewarding is that? I mean, it's not too many careers that you kind of can have such a profound life or death impact on someone's life. That's I'm sure that really is something that it makes you so proud to put on the uniform, right? When you wake up and go to a shift.
Absolutely, and I think you just don't know what any day will bring. It might be a completely mundane, day of relatively routine jobs, or then, like yesterday, for example, I got to drive 80 k's from south of Wollongong to Sydney, lights and sirens up the highway, because my partner was trained in the use of a multi-purpose vehicle for bariatric patients, and she was the closest trained one in New South Wales to a job in Sydney, so we had to get up there as soon as possible. So I got to drive 140 k's up the highway. So
wow,
that was pretty fun. And then came back and helped a 70-year-old woman having a heart attack. She was having a STEMI. So that was our last job of the night. So
what a day. Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to ask. So is there a speed limit in the ambulance? Like when you got lights and sirens, what are your limitations? Can't you just do anything and go anywhere on the road?
I think the general rule is that you have to still drive safely.
Okay.
So
safety first.
I think the rule of thumb is like 30 to 40 k's over would be the absolute max, but only if it's safe to do so. There were short spurts of that on sort of the right-hand lane on the highway, when there was no traffic and good visibility. But most of the time, you're only driving a little, like at road speed or like a road limit speed or a little bit over, because it's not safe to go any faster.
Yeah.
It was sort of fun driving over a medium strip and going up the wrong side of the road for a bit, though.
Oh, yeah.
You get to do that, right?
That's awesome.
Oh, wow. And
the
that
perks,
was just yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, well, you messaged through and said, hey, I've been delayed. Got a STEMI patient that we're with at the moment, and it was touch or go whether we were going to get her on the interview today. Not quite, but, you said it's not often delayed, right, those your shifts, but this one was.
No, down here, we mostly finish on time. Some friends who work in Sydney rarely finish on time. They sort of often work an hour or 2 hours over shift. There's sort of more money to be made in stations where you do a lot of overtime. But then you've got to look after your sort of health as well. They are a 12-hour shift, which could become a 14-hour shift, and then travel time can be quite arduous.
Well, Rach, you kind of referred to it earlier, how you decided to kind of begin this launch into the paramedical career by going through Australian Paramedical College, doing their certificate 4 and diploma studies. Now, I'm really kind of curious as to, that whole process from when you kind of stepped out and to where you are now, in light of the fact that, there was advantages of being able to obviously go the route that you did. You're able to kind of work from home. It would be flexible, but you seem to kind of get to where you are now quite efficiently and effectively. Could you kind of give us it in a nutshell, how you started and to where you're at now, how long that took maybe, and some of the main steps in that process for you?
Yeah, sure. I decided that, I sort of thought about it for a long time and thought, I really want to do it. So signed up online initially to do the Cert 4 with the college. And I just remember being so excited with my gigantic Mosby's textbook arrived. Thinking, oh my God, this is real. This is, yeah. And then just, it took me probably 18 months all up because I was working full-time and had quite a demanding job. So it took me 18 months to do the Cert 4 and the diploma. So I sort of upgraded and added the extra units to make it into the diploma. I considered upgrading to the advanced diploma, but for me, because I wanted to go to university, I thought I'd just save my money and do that. Doing the diploma actually got me 3 units of credit with the university that I had to apply for RPL. But I think more importantly for me, it got me back into studying because it had been a while. I did a degree straight out of high school back in the early 90s. And so it had been quite a while since I studied. And also having the diploma, I didn't need to do any extra testing to get into university.
Right.
So that
made that easier. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sort of got me a position at university as well, because, what I got in my high school marks, in 1990, come 2016, it's no longer relevant.
Yeah.
So either for people who maybe didn't finish high school or finished high school a long time ago, have never done tertiary study or who've, done tertiary study a long time ago, I think it really set me up well to go back to university. And I think also because you're quite self-reliant with studying externally, you have to be motivated, which I know at times is difficult. But you've just got to keep your eye on the prize, You've got to just remind yourself why you're doing this and, you will get there. I did it from sort of where to go in just under 5 years, I guess.
Wow.
So 3 years at university plus the year and a half and then, a few months waiting for a job. So, 5 years, it seems like a long time when you're at the start of it, but looking back, it went sort of quite quickly. And my other advice, I guess, to students would be as much as they can, whether they're going to university or not, is trying to get involved in like student support activities or, other volunteer stuff where you can get more experience. There's, quite a lot of different first aid organisations, volunteer organisations that are around and some that, once you're a little bit more experienced, you can get a paid job as well, which I was fortunate enough to do that. But I think it just really helps you with gaining confidence in talking to patients, getting histories, even if you're not actually doing much, a lot of the time first aid work, you're treating minor wounds and things like that, or, if things are bigger, we're calling the ambulance. So, but then that sort of inspires you to, that's where I want to be one day as well, doing that side of it. So I think just get involved, get as much experience as you can. You learn so much by helping other students too.
Yeah. So, Rachael, you've alluded to the fact that the reason why you did the diploma, it suited your lifestyle and it gave you entry into the Bachelor with some units without doing the testing as well. Were there any other advantages you think of doing the diploma before you went into the Bachelor degree and in terms of theory or practice?
Definitely. I think just gave me a bit of a head start, I felt, on some of the units where I had was coming in with a much better understanding. Considering I didn't really study chemistry, I didn't study chemistry at school. I did a bit of biology, but that was really it with the sciences. So coming in with a much better understanding of a lot of the conditions and a lot of the physiology sort of side of things, and also medications, the fundamentals of ECGs and how hearts work, and like so much that, I felt a lot better prepared than if I'd just come in as a blank slate to university. So even though I only got 3 actual units credited, I felt like I got a lot more from the diploma than just those 3 units of credit. Just being able to study and getting your sort of headset, getting your mindset back into study as well. And also just having to be self-motivated. I mean, I chose to go to university where I was on campus, and so I was around a lot of people and there's a lot of group assignments, which sort of became the bane of my existence for a while. So,
relying on other
lots of
people.
Yeah, and relying on other people, and some people think fours open doors, and it's like, no, you want to do the best you can. You don't want to just scrape through. But having to be self-reliant as you do at uni, like you have to be self-motivated. No one's going to make you do it. You have to do it, and you just have to really keep your eyes on the prize and know what you're going for. So yeah, I think it helped me in more of a mindset wise, as well as the fundamentals of the knowledge that I would be building on through a university degree.
Yeah, it's really good because those mindsets that you have as you're a student, you bring with you into your job and career as well, right? And you want to, pretty much all of the paramedics I can tell, and even first responders that we've been interviewing on this have taken such pride in what they do of making sure they're prepared for an emergency, to make sure that they've done the research, they're at their best for when people are at their worst. And I think that kind of advice and that mentality, definitely is so important for anybody that really wants to pursue this career.
Oh, definitely. And I think also to be prepared for lifelong learning. I mean, there's never going to be a point where you've got this, I know everything there is to know about this job. Like there is so many other jobs, you can hit a wall where you do know everything there is to know about the job. Whereas with this job, there's always more to know. Science is always evolving. Technologies are always evolving. The best way to do things 10 years ago might not be how they realise it's the best way to do things now. So things are always changing. You can do your own research. You'll come across patients with obscure conditions that you want to learn more about in case you come across patients like that in the future. So I think both the college and the university, it sort of teaches you how to learn as well and do your own research and how to critically evaluate other people's research. And, I think you need that curiosity and that thirst for knowledge and to want to continually learn.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'd really like to know, just get some insight into what it's like studying the Bachelor of Paramedicine.
Yeah, so there was some units, like the university that I went to, QUT, there was a lot of dual degree students. A lot of people do dual paramedicine and nursing. And that it seems to be very popular. I think it's considered to be easier to get a job in nursing. A lot of people ask me why I wasn't doing a dual degree, but the simple answer is because I don't want to be a nurse. So I have full respect for nurses, but it's not my thing. Like I don't want to be in a hospital and, maybe having routine sort of work. What attracts me about being a paramedic is you don't know what any day is going to bring. So with the study, most of the units I found really valuable. There were some units that were a little bit more crossover with nursing that I found a little bit more tedious, but, you're going to get something out of all of the units. So even the ones you find a bit boring or a bit obscure, like some of the communication subjects some students struggled with, or cultural subjects, but they are actually really important because we're not just dealing with the medical side of things, you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
And being able to communicate effectively and being sensitive to different cultural aspects of all your different patients, something which, we're continually learning about, that they're all really important. So I think it is helpful to bear in mind that all the subjects do have their value. And of course some are more interesting than others. If you want to be a paramedic, you're probably a lot more interested in the trauma subjects than in the sort of, softer communication subjects, but they are all valuable.
Yeah. And
so
what were some of the highlights for you doing the degree?
I loved the practical stuff. I love the, skills practice and scenarios and going out to White Island where they train the QAS paramedics and sort of doing scenarios out there. And I loved all the cardiac classes as well. I still find ECGs really challenging. Some days I think I get it, and some days I'm just looking at squiggles on a page going, I have no idea what that is. So it's a conceptual thing.
That's great.
So you've almost got it, and sometimes it just disappears and go, I have no idea. But it's practice, it's practice. Keep looking at them, look at normal ECGs, understand why they're normal, look at the ones, even if you don't know exactly what it is, at this stage, if you can know what's normal, know what's not good, not good and like probably okay, or not good and really bad, they're the important things. And then you can work on all the intricacies of it. But I think I like it because I find it so challenging and difficult.
Yeah.
So that one's still a work in progress.
I think that's great though, because there's probably so many students out there that are just feeling like stuck when they get to maybe ECGs and thinking, if I don't get this, then maybe there's no point in me doing this. But it's like that point of continual learning. It takes perseverance. Just keep at it, and you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to. There's so many, variety of situations and inputs and things that contribute to the complexity of each case. And so, I think that's really going to be encouraging for folk out there to hear if they feel stuck on any particular. It might not be ECGs; it could be something else. It's really kind of getting them stuck at the moment. So it's good to hear that even at this point, there's still those challenges and those those difficulties to overcome.
Oh, definitely. And I think one thing about whether it's ECGs or the other equipment that we use is to remember it's easy to sort of over-focus on those, and they form part of the bigger picture. And, as I say, read your patient, not the machines. Like the machines and what they're telling you and the numbers are all part of the picture. But, sometimes the machines are wrong too, and if you've got a machine that's telling you your patient's got 80% oxygen levels, but they're fine and they're well perfused and they're pink, maybe there's something wrong with the machine. So you've got to take the whole thing, the whole picture into context. And I think that's really, it's easy to obsess over sort of numbers or one aspect.
Sounds like you're reading the notes of a previous guest we've had on the podcast. I mean, they pretty much said exactly verbatim the same things that you're saying right now. So, good. That's obviously worth really kind of sitting on and thinking about and really reflecting on.
Yeah, and that's a real good lesson in like just being confident in how you're assessing the situation, not necessarily relying upon the machines that are there to support, but, as you said, read the patient, not the machine. That's why you're there really at the end of the day. That's why a machine can't go out there and do all this stuff. And the communication side of things, which you alluded to, and assessing the situation. And these are all things that are really, at the end of the day, they set, you as apart as a human, trained human paramedic at the scene to make those calls that otherwise a machine couldn't do.
Definitely. And I think, again, you're treating people, not conditions and not injuries. They're first and foremost people who are, a lot of the time they're scared or they're worried or they're anxious or they're in denial, about what's happening to them. And you've got to talk to them, listen to them. One of the most challenging things I find is history taking, as far as asking questions. Like, you've got to ask a lot of questions to the point where you seem like you're being really annoying, asking a lot of questions. But sometimes, listening to my partners, what questions they ask and what sort of tracks they go down has been a real learning experience for me too, because sometimes I get to a point where I don't know what else to ask. So, I think just listening to how other paramedics work is where you can learn a lot as well, especially with history taking.
Yeah.
So you've got through the Bachelor, you've made it to become a registered paramedic, and now you're looking into putting in an application, right, to the New South Wales State Ambulance. Can you talk us through that process and how that went for you and what it took?
Yeah, absolutely. I applied for several different state services. Some of them you can put in an expression of interest and then they'll send you an email when applications are open. But my advice would be initially just have a regular look at the recruitment pages of their websites and know when they're coming up open for applications. So you put in your initial application. Once that's accepted, with New South Wales, I think we had to do some online tests like emotional intelligence tests and sort of basic aptitude tests, so psychometric tests type things, and the same with Queensland. If you get through that process, again, in COVID times, I'm not sure how this will change it, but with New South Wales, we had to go down to Sydney for an assessment day, and it only constituted about 2 to 3 hours, and there was a group activity, there was an interview, there was a computer test, which was drug calcs and basic questions.
Were you nervous?
Yes. Yeah, and it was, you sort of don't know, you don't really know what they want, but, the best thing you can do is to be honest and just be yourself and, try not to be overly cocky. And the scenario was what I found the most challenging. And I think with New South Wales, that was because we were so used to practicing scenarios with the kits and actually going through a whole scenario with the mannequin and, with feedback from the teachers about what you're finding. But they ran the scenario more as like a voice viva. So you just sat down, okay, this is your patient, this is what they've got, go. So had to really just ask a lot of questions and just vocalise everything that you would be doing. You didn't actually have any kit.
Wow.
So just sort of to vocalise what you will be doing. But I think the most important thing really that they're looking for, because once you have the degree, they know that you have the knowledge. So they're really looking for, are you going to be a fit for the organisation? Are you a good person? What are your ethics? What are your work ethics? Are you going to be somebody that other people are going to work with? So I really think that that's almost more important at that stage. Once you have once you've gotten either your diploma or your degree, they know that you have that knowledge. So it's more about, it's a job interview. So it's more about, do they want you to work for their service?
Mm.
So I think that's, and just be yourself and try and, just have integrity. That I think the vast majority of people who want to be paramedics have that anyway.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious to know how, from your perspective, how could somebody assess that themselves and even prepare for that sort of, a component of not only being ready for the interview, but being ready for the job?
I think maybe just think about potentially difficult situations that might arise, like interpersonal situations, and what you would do about that. So, if you're having problems with your partner, how would you handle that? Or if you thought that your partner was using the wrong treatment or going down the wrong path with a patient, how would you handle that? Would you step in and intervene, or at what point, would you step in and intervene? Because you have to maintain confidence in the patient of your partner, but you also have to prevent any harm. So, just have a bit of a think about those balancing acts of how would you like to be treated as a partner that, maybe you've gone down the wrong track a little bit. Would you want to be corrected in front of your patient, or would you prefer your partner to go, hey, have you considered this? Maybe we should try this, and just how you would like to be treated if you were in, not the wrong, so to speak, unintentionally.
Yeah.
Or if you were having a bad day and that was impacting your partner's work or their work day, how would you like them to handle that with you? So that's a really good way to think about it.
Great.
I'd love to kind of dig into, your time getting to this place where you've now got the job, but in that process, I'm sure that journey, that student pathway journey that you were on, I'm sure there were some challenges that you faced, and I'd love to hear maybe how you overcame them and came through the other side, because it's not easy being a student, and it's, by the sounds of it, working as well. Can you talk a bit about the challenges that you overcame?
Yeah, I think probably the main challenge as a student and working almost full-time hours, doing 3, sometimes 4 casual jobs, was just sort of work-life balance and juggling and, I think planning ahead for when when your assignments are going to be due and, when you're going to have busier times at uni and for study times for exams, just sort of a bit of a juggling act with life. I really get that people find that hard. I don't have kids, so I really admire anyone who's undertaking this who has a family and children and school and all those commitments as well. So it is a struggle. And again, I think you just have to focus on the end game. Where do you want to be? Why are you doing this? And plan ahead as much as you can and just be organised and make some time for yourself too. And if you need to take a day off uni and get your mates to give you the lecture notes because you just need a mental health day, well, just do that. It's okay. You need to look after yourself in all this too, because it is hard. It is hard.
Oh, that's great. Be kind to yourself. I like that. That's really
absolutely.
Good.
And just give yourself a break. And, if you don't quite get the marks you wanted for that assignment, it's okay, and just sort of learn from where you could do better next time and, just cut yourself some slack,
Right.
I think some students who put a huge amount of pressure on themselves to get top marks all the time, they really suffer for it. That sort of level of academia doesn't come naturally to most people. And, if you're just honestly doing your best, that's what matters,
Well, I bet there's a lot of students out there that would love to hear that advice. They're probably struggling right now. We're living through a pandemic and life seems turned upside down and there's a lot of uncertainty. And, I'm just taking it one step at a time. It's a marathon. You'll get there and you're proof positive of making it there and beginning to live your dreams. So that's awesome advice. Thanks.
Yeah. And study as well. I think if you can only do that virtually or by Zoom meetings or just chatting with other students, if you can't meet them physically, I think that's really helpful too, because sometimes just talking things through with, you'll have different strengths to your fellow students and you can help each other. Even if both of you don't understand something, just talking it through and working it out together, I think that's really important. Lean on your fellow students and be there for them as well. I think that's really important.
Great. That's good advice. And in the context of advice, is there anything, so now with knowing what you know, you've been through the process, you're on the job now as a trainee, with that insight and perspective, what would you say to yourself way back when you started your journey in terms of either encouragement or insight or how to get perspective, starting out on this journey?
Yeah, I think just keep focused on what it is that you're doing this for and what the end game is. And, find things about it that you, like aspects of the study that you find really interesting and you might want to find out more about, focus on those things. Focus on the things that, aside from uni, do the things that make you happy as well and give you some sort of work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I think just, the main thing is to just, as I keep saying, like eyes on the prize. I kept telling myself that, it's like it's hard and you feel like you're never going to get there and am I even going to get a job? You will. It might be quick. It might take a little longer. There's lots of different options. You might not get the job that you really want straight away, but, there's other things you can do and keep learning and keep supporting each other. there's lots of different podcasts out there. If you're doing some casual job, I was packing first aid kits for quite a while during my study time. And I used to listen to podcasts just to keep myself focused to, and I might not be able to regurgitate a lot of the knowledge from that. There was, some critical care paramedic podcasts, for example, I was listening to, and some of the knowledge was way above me, but just being inspired by those people who are doing it and thinking, yeah, that's what I want to do, and I'll be able to do this, and I'm learning, and just, keep yourself focused and motivated.
I like that tip that you just said, and what stood out to me, you said, if some particular aspect of whether it be theory or whatever it be, that human, anatomy, if there's some particular topic that really interests you, you kind of, push into that and use that as your sort of inspiration in your spark to continue the journey. Obviously, you have to learn everything, but that's a great little piece of advice to kind of notice what really pricks your ears up, in a sense. And for you, it was cardiac stuff. You said you enjoyed that in your bachelor degree. Is that correct? Is that really where you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. And things around, oxygen therapy and, the ambulance services used to give everybody oxygen for pretty much everything. Everybody got oxygen. But we hardly ever use oxygen anymore. Like, why has that changed? And, the benefits of different levels of oxygen therapy for COPD patients and people who don't have COPD and things like that, I would sort of just dig into that a little bit further. Yeah. So for my own interest, but also, when you come across those patients, knowing why you're treating them differently as well. So I think for me, the understanding why makes it a lot more interesting, and the knowledge sits with you rather than just parrot learning. And again, with ECGs, if you really sort of delve into the functionality of the heart, it took me so long to get my head around the views with the leads. What am I looking at? What are these squiggles telling me? What are the different planes of view? If you really sort of focus on that and keep reviewing it, because if you don't, it sort of becomes elusive and disappears again. So sit with a friend or online on Zoom or something and go over that and understand the electronics of the heart, if you like, and what it is that you're seeing on paper, what's that a reflection of. And then it's just a lot easier to understand if you understand why.
Know your why. Eyes on the prize.
Yeah.
And push into your learning to understand why. That's I think that's some really, at least for me, a great takeaway what you're saying. And
follow your curiosity.
Really good.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, stay curious.
Yeah.
Look up things if you come across patient conditions or, medications, you don't know what they are, look it up. So, the more times you do that, it'll stick in your mind and you'll be like, oh, you remember what that is. So I've come across this before and it could help this patient. So it's just, Google is your friend. But be careful what sites you look at, though.
I was going to, yes.
Like caveat. So, Googling stuff is great, but be aware of the
Google
the
Scholar
source.
is your friend.
Google Scholar is your friend, yes.
Yeah, good. Rachael, it's been an absolute delight having you on the show. Thank you so much for your insights. It's going to be so valuable, not only for students, for people at differing stages of their journey into this career of emergency healthcare. It's so good to have a freshie. I hope you don't mind me saying that.
Not at all.
To get your insight as a trainee paramedic for New South Wales Ambulance. Thanks for dressing up for us too. It's really great to have you in uniform. You're legit. And thank you for the time. And we'd hope to stay in touch too. We're very proud.
Yeah, super proud as a
of
college.
You as an alumni from the college, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.